We're getting started here with our final presentation in our Civic Pride and Industry Week. My name is Nathan Denny's, and I am the Associate Director of the Baltimore Architecture Foundation, and thank you for joining us in our latest in our series of Doors Open programs going out throughout the entire month of October. First, thank you to everyone who donated to be with us, and thank you to our Doors Open sponsors, grantors, and in-kind supporters. Thanks to your support, we've been able to offer Doors Open programs nearly every day this month, with many more to come. And speaking of, BAF is launching a new way to support the organization. Become a design enthusiast. Make a donation of $250 or more, and join a group that is passionate about design and supports BAF's programs and initiatives, like Doors Open Baltimore. More information at www.baltimorearchitecture.org. I also encourage you to participate in our Instagram at-home photo contest. We'd love to see photos of buildings around your neighborhood. Use the hashtag DoorsOpenBaltimore to participate. Prizes are available. And now today's presentation. Today wraps up our Civic Pride and Industry Week. And with us here is Steve Bates, AIA, President of MCA Architecture. This office has become a Doors Open Baltimore staple, having been one of the event hubs located at the center of the Clipper Mill complex in Woodbury. Now, I might be biased being a Woodbury resident myself, but Clipper Mill is one of my favorite places in Baltimore, and it's always a pleasure to peek inside this office. And please add any questions you have for Steve in the Zoom chat box. We will get to as many as we can at the end of the presentation. With that, Steve, take it away. Make sure you're unmuted, Steve.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. I'm going to put you on slide presentation mode. There we go. Can you all see that?
Looking good.
Excellent. So thank you very much, Nathan. I appreciate it. And I would invite anyone that has the opportunity to come down and visit Clipper Mill. It is also one of my favorite places in Baltimore. And maybe I am a little bit biased too, but it's a fact. It's an incredibly interesting area with some great businesses and restaurants. I'm just going to do a little bit of a history of the area and just kind of give everyone a little bit of context for where we are. We're in the Woodbury area of Baltimore, one of the older industrial areas of the city. Woodbury itself founded in 1790, and really got its claim to fame from the growth of the cotton mill industry back in the 1800s, from roughly around 1806, early 1800s. So the Jones Falls Valley, you're all familiar with Baltimore. The Jones Falls Valley runs through the core, the heart of the city, coming down. It's now really the path of the Jones Falls Expressway, is the path of the old river from historical times, and it was just a convenient place to build a highway. It would be right over the river. But during its heyday, the Jones Falls is really the engine that really made Baltimore, put Baltimore on the map, because it's around that water power that the Industrial Revolution in Baltimore was able to come to fruition. The original mills that popped up along the Jones Falls were more agricultural in nature very early on. This is an old shingle mill. There were also a lot of grist mills, a lot of farmers out towards the county and even the city at that time, which was very rural at the time, used to bring their crops in towards the city. Obviously, a lot of it would be shipped out through the harbor, and they would bring their crops into town for grinding at the grist mills that popped up along the valley. Early 1800s was the heyday of the clipper ship and sailing ships. They were the semi-trucks of the day. Even modest-sized ships like the Clipper II, Pride of Baltimore in the top right, even modest-sized ships would have hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of square feet of sailcloth that needed to be manufactured. Baltimore put its place on the map in the world, really, as a center for the creation of cotton duck and cotton sailcloth, which is what started the whole Industrial Revolution really here in Baltimore. So picture of the Baltimore Harbor in 1900, and even as late as 1900s, of course, the sail ships were still very much a part of our economy. So along the valley, a whole bunch of mills cropped up. Beyond the grist mills, a whole lot of cotton mills sprang up. You might be familiar with most of them. Hopefully you had a chance to visit many of them: Rockland and Mount Washington, Union Mill, Clipper Mill, Woodbury, Mount Vernon Mill are all in this general area of the city, close to Druid Hill Park and Hamden. The mills of Woodbury, and where we are located is in the Poole Hunt Foundry, which is a little bit of an anomaly because it was not a cotton duck mill or a grist mill or any such thing, but it was actually an industrial mill formed around a foundry for the production of iron and then eventually steel early on in the Industrial Revolution, 1800s. The area we're located is near where the old Poole Hunt Foundry is. You can see Jones Falls coming through the expressway, coming through. The river is literally right underneath the highway at this point. So as you pass through from Union Mill over towards our area, you're literally going across the river underneath the highway. That literally follows the exact route of the river. And you can see Woodbury Mill, Union Mill, the original Clipper Mill is a little bit further south in here. It's now called the Whitehall Mill, but the original mill name was the Clipper Mill, Clipper coming from the name of the ships that it created sailcloth for. And our area was not actually called Clipper Mill. It was called the Poole Hunt Foundry, and a whole bunch of buildings. It was actually at one time the largest machine shop in the world and in the country for a period of time in the mid-1800s, fabricating just about everything you can imagine out of steel and iron to support the Industrial Revolution as we populated the West. You can see we're surrounded on the bottom is the Druid Hill Park and the zoo. We're surrounded, it's almost a little enclave in the heart of the city. The village of Woodbury sprung up around the mills, and Hamden too. There were over 4,000 workers that worked in these mills in their heyday. Today, the mills have been rejuvenated. The old Poole Hunt foundries, they were in operation extensively until essentially until the Depression in the late 1920s. And then they sort of fell on bad times. They changed ownership a number of times. They eventually started to deteriorate, and they were used for enclaves for artists and small tenants. And then in 1995, there was a devastating fire that burned down some of the original buildings. It was like a 6-alarm fire, a major conflagration. And it sat dormant for a little longer. And then the early 2000s, it was rejuvenated and brought back to life, and really has become the heart of a very dynamic community now. So looking at the map on the left, you can see we have on the hill, we have a whole series of new homes that were built to highly sustainable LEED Gold standards. They're all private homes on the hill. We have number 6 is the Stables building, where Biohabitats is right now, a renowned environmental firm. They're in the old horse stable building, which the horses used obviously to transport materials back and forth in the day when they're not being transported by rail. 7 and number 1 are the assembly building and the tractor building. We're located in the assembly building. We'll talk a little bit more about those later. The Mill Race condominiums are on the site of the old building that burned down, one of the original foundry buildings. That's number 3. And number 2 and 5 are original to the architecture of the place. They're all flourishing now with all kinds of fabrication studios, offices, artists. It's a really thriving creative community. Back in the day, it used to look a little bit like this. I'm always blown away by these old pictures when I look in the background and just see how undeveloped it was, even this far into the city. You can see nothing but trees and fields in the background, but you're seeing the village of Woodbury in the background and the Poole Hunt Foundry in the foreground. Many of these buildings are still existing, with the exception of the long building you see in the middle of the photograph. which are the buildings that burned down back in the mid-90s and have currently been replaced with condominiums. To the left is another small village. I actually don't know the name of it, but it goes up onto the hill. There's a whole lot of mill workers' houses, original mill workers' houses up on the hillside. Just a few views from the hillside overlooking this area from the 1800s. Again, look in the background, you see fields and woods, not a view you'll see today. What you're seeing in front of you now is the tractor building, and it's the building we're located in. We're located on the ground floor of this building. What's interesting about this picture is the tractor building was built in the 1890s, and just around the turn of the century, the 1900s, excuse me, this is the assembly building. The tractor building was built sort of 90 degrees and abutting this building. It's not in this picture, so you can kind of get an idea of when the photograph was taken, probably late 1800s. On the left side is the building that is now the Gutierrez Studios. If you've ever had a chance to visit there, just remarkable craftsmen in wood and steel. They have a showroom and do custom fabrication for all kinds of interesting architectural elements. Their work is known across the country. You can see in the foreground of the yard here, though, the kinds of materials that were assembled and fabricated out of steel and iron, and back in the day when the mill was up and running at its full capacity. They provided parts for trains, the steam locomotives. All of these parts you see, the wheels, are all made of cast iron and cast steel. So a lot of those parts were fabricated here at Poole & Hunt back in the day. Another thing they used to make, and you don't hear too much about this, is water wheels. This is an iron water wheel. You're probably more used to seeing the wooden water wheels, but in the 1800s, they did transition a lot of these where the water wheels were still used in a big way for industrial power, mills, running mills, and so forth. Some of these wheels used to get huge, absolutely. Some of them were like 65 feet in diameter. And it took a building the size of the assembly building to be able to accommodate a wheel that size. They'd fabricate all the parts, obviously the pieces and parts, and then they would assemble them here in one piece inside the building. Some of them, stretching up to 65 feet in the air. They would balance them and put them together, and then completely disassemble them and put all the parts on trains, which used to run right through the end of the building and ship them out all over the country. In fact, all over the world. I've seen pictures of Poole & Hunt products, water pumps and water wheels in England and in Europe. This is the gear for a old dreadnought battleship around the before World War I era. This is a turret that would turn one of the large main gun emplacements on a large dreadnought battleship, and you can see that's all cast as one piece here in the mill. Part of the foundry, you can see workers and the gantry cranes used to lift these heavy objects. This was all in industry on a very, very large scale. You can look at the hook in the background. Some of these gantry cranes were well over 50-ton cranes that ran back and forth along the buildings to carry and lift some of these heavy structures that were being fabricated here. Here, another view inside the buildings, which we currently call home. You can see the gantry crane along the top back there. It's a large beam, series of beams that run back and forth along rails along the side of the building and just lift and carry things back and forth. I'm looking at the two objects, the U-shaped objects in the middle of the picture, and they look like the rings that would form the bottom of a piston. If you can imagine an internal combustion engine, some of those old steam engines for ships used to get absolutely gigantic. It's possible that's what they are. Claim to fame for the mill, and a lot of people might not know this, is the Capitol Dome in Washington, DC. Everything that you're looking at right here in white is actually made of cast iron. It looks like stone, but it's actually cast iron. The lower and supporting structure, including all of those classical columns you see on the outside and some of the ring supports, were all made of cast iron right here in Clipper Mill, right in the building that I'm currently sitting in, and the adjacent buildings. the cast iron above that, some of it was fabricated in New York. There's a tremendous amount of work, and it came from a whole series of different mills up and down the East Coast. But I guess for Baltimore, we're proud to say that all the work done in Baltimore supports the entire rest of the Capitol Dome. Fascinating picture here from the mid-1800s, showing the actual columns going up and being fabricated before the dome was actually built. This is back when they were restoring and renovating and expanding the Capitol building. Current view, this is the intersection where our Clipper Park Road intersects with what is now the light rail tracks, but used to be the main commercial tracks that ran through the Jones Falls Valley. You can see some of the existing buildings. The building on the left in the old picture is still here. It was just recently renovated and sold. Some of the buildings have changed. You can still see one of the stacks in the background, the smokestacks. But this is a fairly busy intersection even today. It used to be an old railroad yard. This is the old Poole Hunt building where all the design and engineering work used to be done. The administration of the entire facility was done from here. And this building still stands today. It's available for lease, and it's filled with offices at this point. Here's the building today, and you can see to the left the road that goes up through, and you can see the road continues right through the assembly building that we're in. That used to be railroad tracks many years ago, and the train used to stop underneath the building so that fabricated pieces could be unloaded onto the trains and they would move on through. This is a similar view back in the day with the train tracks running right through the building. Watch person on the side, keeping a view over things, cobblestone streets. And most of that's still here today, with the exception of the buildings on the left, the ones that burned down. Now they're the mill race condominiums on the left. What you're seeing here is a stables building that the biohabitats currently are in. In the background, you see the tractor building. It has William Hooper and Sons sign on it. So this is a little bit later. The ownership is transferred. You can see to the left of the William Hooper building, there's like a little square addition put on the building. That's not there anymore. And then in the background, you can see the original assembly building and the train tracks running through the yard. So keep that in mind as we go to the next picture. So this is what it looks like today with this, the stables building, which is a beautiful building on the right-hand side. I have the picture. The detail with the brick is actually the old beams that are still sticking out of the tractor building, where you can see where that old addition used to be that I pointed out in the last picture, and now is just a remnant. You can sort of see it's like an archaeological dig. You can see some of the history of the building. If you just take the time to look at some of the details, you can see what you can sort of imagine what used to be there. This is the inside of the current tractor building. This is where I parked my car. It's an absolutely cavernous space. This is what the assembly building also used to look like. The clear span roof, very, very tall. You can imagine them assembling these gigantic 65-foot diameter water wheels in a space like this, and then taking them all back down and shipping them out. But actually, absolutely amazing space. If you ever get a chance to come to Clipper Mill and have an opportunity to go inside the tractor building, it's currently slated for development. It's going to turn into some apartments before too long, and your chance to see this view will be is limited. And if you have an opportunity to do it, I would take advantage of it. So the assembly building is where we are located. You can see in the foreground, or the midground, I should say, is the hole in the ground is where the current swimming pool is. There's a community swimming pool in the ruins of the old building that burned down. It's an absolutely fascinating feature of the area, and if you haven't had a chance to visit, it's worth the trip just to see that. It's a really unique space. In the foreground is, of course, we have Woodbury Kitchen, the famous restaurant. In the foreground, there's a community fireplace that we're all allowed to use, and we bring our guests over and friends, and it's just a great place to hang out. You can see in the foreground is Woodbury Kitchen, the patio, the swimming pool area at night. You can see the old road going through where the trains used to go through. The upper level of this building now is 2 stories of apartments, kind of pretty high-end apartments that can be rented. They're loft style, 1 and 2 bedroom, I believe. And then on the lower level, that entire lower level off to the left there, all those windows are where our office is currently located. Happy to say they all overlook the pool. It's kind of a really nice setting. And then above that, you see the old roof structure that was left in place, but you can see how tall the building was to accommodate the old functions. Today, this is what it looks like. You can see the old gantry crane. There's an old Shaw 50-ton gantry crane still in place that was left in place attached to the roof structure, but the entire inside of the building was gutted out. A lot of the existing steel and iron columns are still in place, but the rest was rebuilt. There's 2 floors of apartments, and then you can see the skylights that look down into the lobby of our space below. The courtyard for the apartments. It's got a green roof. Skylights that look down into our lobby below. Just a picture from one of the apartments above. They're very nice spaces, really super interesting spaces. The walls are about 3 feet thick on the exterior, brick, and then the bottom of the building, it's actually solid granite, 3 feet thick. When you get to the basement level, the walls are about 8 feet thick. They're absolutely monumental granite walls that are incredibly thick to support the tremendous amount of weight that they used to bear. Again, you can sort of see the granite here on the lower levels, the granite foundation stone, and then above that, the nominal 3 feet thick brick walls that support the rest of the building. There's a swimming pool in the daytime, and that's a great place to hang out. We have office parties there. We have, this year's been an exception, of course. We've missed it, but there's been a lot of community activities here. Great place to go for a mid-afternoon meeting and so forth. Nighttime, the torches are lit. These are original cast iron columns from the original building. They were converted to torches that are gas powered, and they're pretty dramatic in the nighttime. Looking from the tractor building down to the east, you can see the mill race condominiums. The reason it's called the mill race is along the right-hand side of the picture, there actually is a stream that runs through the entire community that actually powered a lot of the original machinery. That mill race goes right through the middle of our office. And in fact, we have windows inside our office that look down into the mill race that runs through the building. Tremendous texture. I love taking the pictures of just the texture, the stone, the brick, sort of the history of the fabric of the building. This is looking towards the north side of the building, across the street, across what used to be the railroad tracks. You can see to the right is the Glass Studios, which are also worth a visit if you ever have a chance to come down. Just a few shots of the neighborhood. I love Gutierrez Studios fabricated a lot of the steel railings, which were fabricated out of pieces and parts from the old industrial machinery that was found in the buildings after the fire, and they were repurposed as handrails and very artistic. But you get tremendous textures and shadows and so forth throughout the entire neighborhood. Super interesting place to live and work. So here's the inside of the old machine shop. Again, this whole big, huge cavernous space that used to be there, and now looking like this. So this is the entrance to our building. There's a sculpture by Gutierrez Glass Studios hanging off the 50-ton gantry crane. That's how you find our front door, and we're right through the set of doors you see there. We've got basically 2 stories worth of space. You enter our lobby. We moved here in 2016. And we wanted a space that we could actually entertain. We have events for the community here. course, doors open in Baltimore. We do once a year, but we also participate and mingle at the mill. So sometimes we'll have hundreds of people over to our office for free pit beef, and we turn our front desk into a bar and invite the neighbors over. So it's a great place to mingle, and thoroughly enjoyed being here and part of the community. Off to the right, you can see an old mid-1800s carpenter's table. So we've tried to furnish parts of the building in period pieces. There's an old carpenter's table, workbench with wooden vices on it. We've got some other old pieces around the office from the era. We have spaces in our building that we use for community art display. We charge nothing for local artists to come and present their work, and you know, it gives some artists that might not otherwise have the opportunity a little bit of gallery space to present the work, or have some openings, or have guests or possible customers come over and see some of their work. So we're very happy to accommodate that. We've got 3 artists currently displaying throughout the office. Our lobby, we have, on the left, you can see our reception desk. We actually took advantage of some old salvaged and recycled bridge beams that we used throughout to support sort of the industrial aesthetic of the space. We've built our entire reception desk around some old wide flange beams that are about 36 inches thick, and then sort of contrasted that with a lot of modern materials, glass and so forth. Our conference room, live edged walnut table that was fabricated by an artist in Ohio for us. We're very happy with that. It's our conference room. We're an architecture firm. We have interior design. So this is our interior design library, where our interior designers sort of pull their patterns, materials, finishes together and run up schemes and do their scheming. And very dynamic place to work. Great open plan. We have no offices in our actual hardware offices other than our financial person. We have no doors on any of our offices. It's all completely open plan. We like to collaborate in teams at every level, and the architecture of the building sort of helps support that. Table in the foreground is actually from the old Sparrows Point shipbuilding yard. It's circa early 1900s. And the top for it, that's the trestle part, the top for it, which is matching, is from the old Frederick Douglass High School, one of the original African-American high schools in Baltimore City. It was from the old wood shop class. You can't see it in the picture, but there's old vices, the old attachment points for all the wood vices that used to be. And we were able to find both pieces through someone we know here in town and put them together, but it's an identical table to pictures we found for shop tables that were located in this building back in the 1800s. We have an upper mezzanine we're using for conference space at the moment. On the building, the window at the left is actually where we can look down into the mill race and see the water flowing through onto, it's a granite cobblestone bed that runs through the bottom of the building, and the water runs straight through the middle of the building. You can look down into it. View from one of our conference rooms. You can see how thick the walls are on the right. Glass offices. This is just a little breakout room. It's not so much an office, it's just a little breakout area. We had a couple of our summer interns in interior design design some graphics for us based on the Baltimore theme. We've got the water wheels and the Capitol Dome, and we've got Plan of Baltimore City. And they went with that theme and did a great job with it on several of the glass walls in the office. The kitchen area, we have a big, huge beam that runs right through the middle of the kitchen area. We use it for a serving counter. We always get comments on it. It's huge. It's probably about 18 feet long, and you can see how tall it is. It's just a big, huge hunk of steel we use for a serving counter. We're a dog-friendly office. We like to see our dogs here, and I just thought I'd put a couple of humorous pictures in. Every time it's pool season, whenever the pool opens, the rubber duck comes out, and he gets inflated in our main lobby, and he stays there for the summer until pool season's over, just to remind us all that we've got to have fun once in a while. And we see Anthony on the right-hand side doing a stream clean. We've done that several of the last falls. We've come in and done a stream clean with the Cub Scouts, and just got our feet and hands dirty and picked all the trash that comes flowing down from the city streets out of the creek before it gets into the Jones Falls and ends up in the harbor. It's been a pretty interesting location to live and work. We've had people come in and ask if they could shoot music videos in our office. We've had commercials shot in our office. In fact, we had one film crew that came in, they had more employees on their film crew than we had in our office. I think they brought about 40-something people on their film crew, including caterers and you name it, but they filled the entire office up for a shoot for, I think it was a commercial for a bank. We've had people shoot documentaries here. So it's an interesting place to be. It's always something a little different. So we hope you get a chance to visit sometime in the near future. Maybe doors open next year. You'll have a chance to come and visit us and some of our great colleagues in some of the other firms around and say hi. So I'm all done, Nathan, if you want to take it back.
Sure, thank you. Yes, and we really hope that by this time next year we'll be having doors open in person again, and we'll have your office featured as well. I got a funny question here. Do you get free food from the caterers?
I don't know if well, we had some of our employees they hired some of our employees as paid actors while they were here. I think they got food from the caterers. I don't think anybody else did. But if you get a chance to come by at Mingle at the Mill, we're not going to be doing it this year probably, but we usually it's in November. It's usually a Friday night in November. And we open up, a lot of the businesses around open up, but we always have Blue Pit Barbecue come over and everything's free. So we have an open catering for anybody that wants to stop by. And we also have open bar, also free. So next time you see a Mingle at the Mill advertised, I'd encourage you to stop by because it's all good.
Yeah, I miss Mingle at the Mill, and I really miss not being able to go to that pool this summer.
Yeah.
That was a bummer. Thank you for your great presentation. So what the architects Cho Benn Holback did the design for Clipper Mill, the complex, and then you've done a great job. Your firm MCA has done a great job with.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that Streuver Brothers, Eccles and Rouse did the original development back in, I believe it was just the turn of this century, early 2000s, and Cho Benn Holback did the shell work on the building. They did a great job.
Yeah, and I have a question. Do you have gallery shows for the artists, or do you ever open up for the public for artist shows?
We do. We leave it to the artists to decide when they want to have their gallery shows and their openings. We haven't had too many. We've had a couple. But anybody who wants to stop by our office during the regular working hours, daylight working hours, we always, if they're coming by to see the artwork, we're always willing to show somebody around and let them in.
Great. And I have a question about this is just coming from me. Like, tell us a little bit about the work that MCA Architecture does.
Well, we work for large institutional clients. We've got some really fascinating, great clients that we work with for many, many decades. But it's usually, for us, it's in either healthcare, acute healthcare, hospitals, and so forth. We do a lot of college and university work. We're doing a lot of fascinating work right now for the National Park Service all over the country. I just completed 3 projects up in Alaska. We're at Channel Islands just a couple of weeks ago. We're down in Texas at Padre Island. We've been all over the country with the Park Service over the last year. It's been absolutely fascinating work. Museum work. Baltimore Museum of Art has been one of our clients over the years. We have a very large museum project we're not allowed to talk about right now because we're on a non-disclosure agreement, but we have a fantastic museum project in DC ongoing right now. And I'm looking forward to being able to talk about that in the near future. It's killing me that I can't, but we do a lot of industrial work too for sort of Department of Defense, Northrop Grumman, Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Labs, a lot of research facilities for the schools of medicine downtown, both Hopkins and University of Maryland. So a lot of laboratory work, research and development type of work. Pretty varied portfolio.
That's great. It sounds like the coronavirus hasn't slowed you guys down that much.
No, not at all. We're as busy as we've ever been right now. It's been a good year from that perspective.
Great. And so how does an architecture firm function during the global pandemic?
Well, it was surprisingly less disruptive than we thought it would be. We had already had the technology in place to work from home through what we call our virtual private network, VPN. So essentially what it means is folks at home can log in through a series of firewalls and actually connect to our servers that are here in the office. So if you're working at home, it's transparent. It's as if you were working right here in the office. You can access your drawing files and just keep right on going. We had to ramp all that up, beef it up substantially when we got hit with COVID this year. We increased the bandwidth. We got more fiber run to the office, so we had more bandwidth. And we added some more software that helps our teams communicate. It's a very collaborative sort of profession, and we like to work in teams, and that is probably the biggest cultural shift we've had to make. It's very difficult. I still prefer, it's not as good as it used to be, in my opinion. I prefer to work with people, around people, and enjoy their camaraderie and bouncing ideas off them. But we have adjusted, and we've learned how to do that through Slack and Zoom and GoToMeeting and Microsoft Teams, and we've just adapted like the rest of the world has. And our interior designers still come down to the office. The office is open for those that want to take advantage of it. We have a lot of safety measures in place, but we don't encourage too many people to come up at once. Most people are still working from home. Our interior designers come in frequently to use the library and to do storyboarding and so forth. And if you come here at any given time, there's usually a group of people here, but it's not, most people are working from home and finding it a little bit less convenient. They're having, we had a major Comcast outage just this morning across the entire region, and that knocked us out for a relatively short period of time, but it knocked everybody offline. Nobody could get onto their work. So there are some inconveniences with it. When we're in the office, it's a much more robust system. We have emergency backup batteries. We have an emergency generator to back that up. So when we're here, it's a pretty robust system we have in place. But when we're working remotely, it's a little bit less reliable. And that's been a big change too. But we've done everything we've always used to do. We've been able to figure out how to do it online. We've had interviews with clients. We've had presentations to clients online. We still do need to show up once in a while. We have been traveling out to the national parks because you actually do need to see the buildings you're working on once in a while and measure them and photograph them. So we have been traveling still, but it's an adjustment. Like everybody else has had to make an adjustment. You just, you learn to roll with the punches, and you've got to remain flexible. And thank goodness we've had a staff that's been absolutely heroic and willing to be extremely flexible with us in terms of figuring all this out as we go.
That's an important thing to have. And I have two questions in one here. Do you think you'll still offer the flexibility for your employees to work from home after COVID or work remotely? And then also, when you're designing a building, do you usually sketch first with a pen and paper, or do you go straight to CAD?
Oh, good questions. So let me take the last one first, and then by that time I've forgotten what the first one was. You'll have to remind me. But the approach to design is very individual. I personally prefer the old pen and paper approach. I've never lost the enjoyment and the feel of being able to work on with a pen, and just I find it more creative. I find it quicker. I find I can actually go through different iterations faster with sketching. But you know, I'm pretty adept, but some of our younger architects in particular are extremely adept in adapting their workflow to you know, CAD sort of tools. Rendering software is phenomenal now, what you can do with it with real-time rendering. So we use, I think it's an all of the above sort of approach these days. We've got a million tools to work with, and it's a matter of adapting all of them to work best for the flow. Each project's a little different too. Each project has a little bit of a different approach. They're all unique. But personally, I always like the pen and paper. I probably always will. Old school. I enjoy it. I'm sorry, what was the first part of the question?
Yeah, the other part was, do you still think you'll allow for flexibility?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think there's any going back on that either. I think we've all become more enlightened, and as much as we enjoy and value the collaboration, so we do want people back here. We're looking forward to getting back, but we'll be a lot more flexible moving forward in terms of the work from home aspect of what we do. There's no question about it. And honestly, I'll be one of the ones that will take advantage of it, because I mean, there are certainly days where I'll get up and it's a whole lot more efficient for me to just to sit at my table at home and work all day long and then commute. I'm a commuter. I'm one of the few people in our office that commute quite a long way to get to work. And I enjoy being here, and that's why I do it. But there are times when it's much more efficient to work from home and avoid the commute and just get done what needs to be done. So I'll be taking advantage of it, just as I hope the rest of our employees will be.
Great. And I see that you're in the office now. Could you turn the camera around and show us a little bit?
I can. I'm sitting in the corner, and I'll see what I can do here. This might be, I think the camera shows things backwards. I don't know why. Let me see what I can do. So these are the back walls of the place. You can see granite. That's about 3 feet thick. And then as I pan over here, of course, there's nobody here at the moment. It's all open office environment. I'm underneath the mezzanine. So if you go kind of pointing towards it's sort of a donut shaped office. And we all walk around an atrium. The atrium outside is where the mill race goes through. And then outside of that, you have a 2-story space as you go out into the open office area. And they have these gigantic windows that go along the east side of the building. We have electronic roller shades that come down in the mornings because the sunlight gets a little intense. And then as the day goes on, the screens go up and we can take advantage of the wonderful daylight that comes in. All of those windows there overlook the pool area. So it's a really interesting place to be. And then over just next to me here is one of those breakout rooms. There's the graphics we had just installed that our interns designed. So this is kind of my view. I like sitting here in the corner because I can get a panorama view of about half of the office from here. We're about 10,000 square feet here. You can't see the mezzanine. You can't see what's behind there, the kitchen and the art gallery and so forth. The lobby are out of my sight. But so how's that? Does that work?
That was great. Thank you.
Never done that before. We're going to do that more often.
Well, that's all I have for questions. I'll add one thing, which is that Woodbury, just a few months ago, became a local historic district with the city, which is really exciting. And we did a presentation a few months ago as part of our virtual history series that goes a bit deeper into the history of Poole and Hunt. For anyone who wants to learn more about that, you can check out our YouTube page to find that. And also, I hope that everyone can return for some more Doors Open programs. We're almost halfway through the event, and we've got a lot more on offer. So please check it out at www.doorsopenbaltimore.org. Thank you, Steve.
Nathan, thank you for the Baltimore Architecture Foundation for sponsoring this. It's a fantastic event.
Okay, have a good day.
Take care. Bye now.